The main goal of the lab is in 12 weeks, you have at least your first $500 a month in passive income or your next $500 a month in passive income. And we only work with people who can do what it takes to get to that end. So that's how you work with Wealth Without Wall Street. Step one, step two, and at the end of it, you've now got your $500 a month, and you start stacking that until you get to your 10,000 a month or whatever the number is that you need to get to your financial freedom number.
Welcome to CRE PN Radio for influential commercial real estate professionals who work with investors, buyers, and sellers of commercial real estate coast to coast. Whether you're an investor, broker, lender, property manager, attorney, or accountant, we're here to learn from the experts.
Welcome to Commercial Real Estate Pro Network's CRE PN Radio. Thanks for joining us. My name is J. Darren Gross. This is the podcast focused on commercial real estate investment and risk management strategies. Weekly, we have conversations with commercial real estate investors and professionals who provide their experience and insight to help you grow your real estate portfolio. Today's interview is sponsored by Building Insurance and Risk. When you invest in real estate, it pays to work with a real estate investor protection specialist to protect yourself and your investment from catastrophic loss. The experts at Building Insurance and Risk focus on real estate investor protection. They provide you with multiple insurance coverage offers and a side-by-side coverage comparison. To learn more, go to buildinginsuranceRisk.com. Today, my guest is Joey Mure. Joey Mure has been helping individuals achieve financial freedom through faith-driven strategies that align values with sustainable passive income creation. And in just a minute, we're going to speak with Joey Mure about sustainable passive income creation. But first, a quick reminder, if you like our show, CRE PN Radio, there are a couple things you can do to help us out. You can like, share, and subscribe. And as always, we encourage you to leave a comment. We love to hear from our listeners. Also, if you want to see how handsome our guests are, be sure to check out our YouTube channel. You can find us on YouTube at Commercial Real Estate Pro Network. And while you're there, please subscribe. With that, I want to welcome my guest, Joey Mure. Welcome to CRE PN Radio.
Darren, so good to be with you, and you have a voice for radio. There's no doubt.
Well, I appreciate that. Not a face yeah, probably a face for radio too, right? But no, I appreciate that. And I'm looking forward to our conversation. But before we get started, if you could take just a minute and share with the listeners a little bit about your background.
Well, I'll tell you this. I'm not going to give you my mom's version of who I am and where I'm from and all that. What I am going to tell you is that my life was just like everybody else's. It was the guy that was told, go to school, get good grades, get a good job, make more money, and one day retire. And I was in the middle of processing through that whole ladder, if you will, and I found myself in my late 20s as a mortgage broker for Wells Fargo. And I looked up, I was making over $300,000 a year in my late 20s. My wife didn't work. We had four beautiful daughters. We were expecting our fourth daughter, and we now have five, by the way, Darren, so you can pray for me after this. But I found myself at every corner of my life feeling like I am just on this treadmill. Yes, I'm making a lot of money, but at what cost? I was literally on vacation, and I would tell my wife and my girls, hey, you guys go down to the beach and I'll be right there. I just have to make one more phone call. And you know exactly where the story's going. 4 hours later, I get off of work while I'm on vacation, and I walk down that boardwalk behind the condo. You can picture it. And there they are walking up the opposite way. And I see their faces. And it finally clicks. It's like the disappointment in their eyes is like, Dad, you're here. You're physically in the same location, but you're miles away. And I didn't know what the answer was at that time, Darren, but I knew that that wasn't what I signed up for. But I had gotten drawn away over these years to think this was the right answer. This is what everybody's looking for. And it did not make me feel fulfilled. It did not make me feel like I was making the difference that I intended with my family. And I had to find a different path. That is my story, is the Wealth Without Wall Street story. And we can dive into all the aspects of what we did from there, but that's what you need to know about who you're talking to today.
No, I appreciate that, and the background's always helpful. So let's talk a little bit about this. You go to school, you get the degree, you go into the workforce, you're doing well. You realize there's something missing. Tell us, how did you, go from that to what you're doing now?
Well, here's the end of the story, and then I'll back up. We now have over 50,000 a month in passive income that we report to the world every single month. On our podcast, you can go hear us. We tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly. You need to know that we're authentically sharing our whole story, but that's the end of the story. Now, the steps to get there took a lot longer, and we've now figured out by looking backwards. It's like, look in the rear view, it's 2020. Your vision is 2020. You can see exactly the steps that it took to get there. We now provide that to people in a much more, compact time frame. But I'll tell you, it started with not buying into the idea of retirement. And this is the challenge that I have for you as you're listening to Darren and I today is don't buy into the idea that retirement is the only answer. And what I mean by that is retirement is predicated on the idea that you just need to start putting money away slowly and surely and accumulating money in some place that you don't own, you don't control, and you can't really be in charge of the variables that will be at the other end of it. And then one day you stop working. It's like you're putting up with work until you stop. And then eventually you start peeling dollars back off of that mountain of cash that you created and hope that it doesn't run out. That is a lie. I'm just going to tell you right now, retirement is not the answer. What is the answer is doing the work that you love now, like finding what is it that I am uniquely gifted to provide value to this world, that I can get paid for, that I also can be putting that money to work today to create passive income that exceeds my monthly expenses. If I have enough passive income that covers my monthly expenses today, I am 100% free. That's where I can go where I want, be where I want, with whom I want, and my calendar is my own. Until that time, your calendar is owned by somebody else. And that's what I was feeling when I was in the mortgage business in my late 20s and my kids were at the beach and I wasn't, right? My time was owned by somebody else because I didn't have my money at work. It was going into this abyss, this crazy, 401k, IRAs, all these things that are designed for retirement. But, the Bible never talks about retirement because we're never called to just stop providing value to this world. If we think about it like that, then what we do with our time should always be adding value. And it's just a matter of, not ever getting to a point where we want to stop that. Does that make sense? Again, that's where it all started. I just want to leave that with you.
Yeah, it makes complete sense. The notion of a work stoppage and there's a pile of money that's going to last you, and then also I think the having older parents and kind of recognizing how that works, there's some questions and or some points to be aware of and recognize that, it's not, there's a possibility it may not work, based on the setup there. And so I'm curious more of how you identified the the different investment vehicles and how you created the freedom, the financial freedom that everybody's seeking. And also, I love the notion of like it's not about a work stoppage, um, and because I do believe that and that's one of the things I love about real estate is the long game, not the flip game, kind of the buy, add value, sell, buy, add value, sell, but just having some sort of a long runway where the investment vehicle it's generating income and over time it will even produce more and eventually there'll be no debt. That I mean that's the long-term goal in my mind is a debt-free property that's generating income and giving me the freedom that I'm looking for.
Right. Well, I'll share one other quick story. They all have to do with the beach, apparently, dear. And I don't know
All
what
right.
the deal is, but I love the beach. I'm at the beach again one time, and my wife and kids, we all have these swim shirts that say "Wealth Without Wall Street." Of course, you have to be like marketing while you're at the beach, and so we're sitting there. We all have these shirts on, and this older lady's kind of catty cornered to us back on the beach, and she walks up. And she's like, "Hey, I just noticed in your family, look, what a cute family." And then she's like, "Hey, what's that on your shirt?" And I'm like, "Well, this is our company, Wealth Without Wall Street." She's like, "Huh, wonder what what's that all about?" And I just told her a little bit. And she says, "Well, I'll tell you, we just retired last year and I hope it's enough." That was her words, like verbatim. And I don't know about you, Darren, but like I hear those words and I'm thinking about where she is in her life. She's just, I mean, if we think about it, like like you're walking up a mountain. She was at the climax, right? She's at the top of what everybody has been telling us about retirement. Man, eventually you're going to get to go and enjoy life. Like you're going to be able to travel, you're going to be able to spend time with your grandkids and be all these places. You have freedom. And the number one word that she shares about that experience is, I hope it's enough. Do you think that she is living abundantly with words like that?
No,
Do you
scarcity,
think,
yeah.
yeah, do you think she feels free? No. She is even at the top of the mountain. She's saying, I'm worried. I don't know that this is going to work. And that is the thing that we're trying to solve. You have to have less hope, more strategy, more like consistency, more known process of having success. If I tell you right now, so think about the alternative. Somebody has a pile of cash and they've been doing it for 30 or 40 years of their life. And all of a sudden they're like, man, I hope I don't take too much. I hope I don't take too little. Like, wonder if the market's going to do this. The variables are just they're outrageous. Now compare that with I say, hey, Darren, you've got $3,000 a month of passive income coming in from your commercial properties and your real estate or whatever the case is, and you have $10,000 a month of expenses. How close are you to financial freedom? You do the
Not,
math.
yeah, not very.
Well, not very, but you know what the number is.
Right.
You're 30% of the way there. And so you can then solve the math problem. Okay, well, how do I get to 10,000? Well, I bought these properties, I did it this way. Maybe there's a more creative way that I could get there faster. Maybe there, like you start getting creative about solving the math problem. But you have variables when it comes to investing. There's no ever a lack of variables. But how many variables are there when it comes to real estate investing or whatever these passive income ideas we're going to get into compared to the stock market? It's not even close. And so that's the point I'm trying to make is we got to quit buying into the lie that that's the end. We need to start solving the math problem today, and we can all do this on the back of a napkin. So anyway, that's my encouragement is, and we can get into more details, but that's a real life story that just really shook me and made me think, man, we're doing the right thing here.
Yeah. So if I understand right, so I mean, wealth without Wall Street, you're basically uh, looking at what are the alternatives to the traditional 401k where Wall Street, takes your money and invest in mutual funds and collects their fees and other mutual funds and collects more fees and, and lots of fees on the fees. And but so give me an idea. I mean, so if somebody comes to you like whether it be the woman at the beach or somebody that's listening to this, they're seeking some sort of a vehicle, a way out, a way to financial freedom. How does with wealth without Wall Street uh, present, offer alternatives? How do you guys work, and what are some of the vehicles that you are drawn to or that you know work with?
Great question. So there's two steps that really take somebody from, hey, I'm interested in this idea to financial freedom. Okay. Number one, we've already said the mindset of retirement is something we have to get rid of. But the part about that we help solve first is once you've bought into the idea, I'm not going to retire, I'm going to create passive income today. Now I have to change what I do with money. Because if everything you've done with money up to this point has been, man, put it away, hope for the best, and maybe the market goes up, maybe the market goes down. If that's been your strategy, those things can no longer help you get to financial freedom today. And I'll give you one example. Darren, you've been putting money into 401k, and now you're like, okay, I want to create more passive income than monthly expenses. That's my goal, right? So I ask you a simple question. Anything you do with money from this day forward has to either pull one of those two levers. It either has to increase my passive income or decrease a monthly expense. Because those are the only two things that matter in this formula, right? I'm a simple minded guy from Alabama, Darren. So stick with me here, okay? So when you put a dollar, you put $1,000 a month into your 401k, does it produce a passive income today?
For me, no, not while I'm working. No,
No.
yeah,
Does it produce a passive income? Does it reduce a monthly expense today?
no.
Okay. So when I put money into this, is it getting me closer to financial freedom or further from
Uh,
today?
today, no, no.
It's further
So
from,
yeah, further
right?
from right, correct.
So that is what we call a money trap. And what we do in the very first step when we work with people is we help them objectively do the math and look at where they have money going today and say, okay, are these things getting you closer to or further from financial freedom? And we help them reroute it into an architecture we call the passive income operating system that helps them maximize access to their own capital because access to cash is the biggest issue keeping people from financial freedom. We've helped thousands of people on this process, Darren, and that's the number one thing that's standing in their way. They don't have access to cash. They have money, they just don't have access to it. And so our first step is our coaches walk them through that and help them get to within about 4 weeks. They can help them really create an automated system that helps them turn active income into passive income. But then the big challenge comes and they say, okay, I have access to cash. Now, what do I do with it? And that's the second step that people have to go through. And we've developed what we call the passive income lab. We call it that for a reason because it's hands on. Think about lab in high school, biology lab. What are you doing? You're like cutting open frogs and you're doing, science experiments. You're hands on. You're learning by doing. The passive income lab is a 12-week accelerator that you do with a group where you're accountable to making progress. And part of that is you're getting equipped with who you are as an investor, learning your personality type and what investments line up with that. You're building a buy box, which means when you get pitched a deal, Darren, and we all get pitched deals, They all look good. Like they're not looking bad, right? They look good. But if they don't line up with your buy box, and here's the thing, we build AI tools that help you put those PPMs and those pitch decks and the things that you get from these investments, put them into these tools, and it tells you, does this line up with me or not? Does this line up with what I'm trying to accomplish or not? Does it give me cash flow today? Does it give me tax benefits? Like all these characteristics, you want to be clear on the fact of does this line up or not? We help you build that. And then lastly, it helps you learn how do you have conversations with operators and sponsors on deals so that you know what questions to ask, you know how to interact with them so that you feel confident as an investor. The number one thing that people get from working in our passive income lab is confidence because you may have had some success in the past on an investment, but you really aren't sure why. That doesn't help you in the next deal. It just makes you a little bit more nervous. But unless you have a system and you have all these pieces that I just broke out for you, that's what is the difference that makes you a confident investor. And our lab has consistently produced those results for people. The main goal of the lab is in 12 weeks, you have at least your first $500 a month in passive income or your next $500 a month in passive income. And we only work with people who can do what it takes to get to that end. So that's how you work with Wealth Without Wall Street. Step one, step two, and at the end of it, you've now got your $500 a month, and you start stacking that until you get to your 10,000 a month or whatever the number is that you need to get to your financial freedom number.
Got it. And as far as the mechanics of all that, I understand the concept. Somebody has some income, they put it into the what are the vehicles? Is it wide? I mean, you mentioned, as opportunities come to them, they can select. Is it a whole menu of opportunities, but it's more about building the or understanding who they are and what their
Exactly.
their I guess go to or what they're most comfortable or what would serve them best kind of thing. Is that
Yeah. Yeah, I want to be very clear. We do not provide investment vehicles. We
okay?
are not a broker or investment advisor of any way, shape, or form. What we are doing is educating you on who you are and what sort of things line up with you. And then we have a library of deals that we have personally been involved with or had people involved with that are past. They're not live. They're not active. And so what it allows you to do is to take that kind of information, run it through your own system and say, these are the types of deals that I need to look for. And so these things range, Darren, which if you listen to our podcast, you hear us talk on the podcast about our own personal passive income. We do everything from flipping raw land to owner finance notes to Turo cars. We've rented RVs. We have a vending machine route. We've done syndications in the oil and gas space and commercial real estate like apartments, mobile home parks. You name it, we have done something in that space. But the bigger thing is not what's important or what has been successful for me and Russ. The biggest thing is what is going to be successful for you. And that's the key differential. We're agnostic. We don't have a product to push on you to say, hey, you should go do this because we get paid for it. That we don't get paid for any of these things. We want you to be successful in the things that line up with you, and we don't have any bias towards that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so basically you have like a library of case studies of of different vehicles. And what I appreciate in that is that I think that is a real aha, just to recognize all the different ways. Whereas as we've been kind of led to believe, you go to university, you get a degree, you go to get a job, and with that there's a 401k, and now it's just basically put your nose down and keep working, and like I said, until 35 or 40 years later when you have you're like that lady, say, I hope it's enough. That's only one option, and what I love about what you're talking about there is that there's a whole, unlimited uh, menu of opportunities that most people aren't aware of because they haven't had the capital to invest, or they haven't been in the circles of people that are doing those types of things. And if you don't have that, how would you know? And so
Exactly.
what you're doing is you're bringing to light the opportunities and the hows, and I love the fact that you're not, brokering these things as much as more of a resource of these are things that we've done, or that our students have done, just to kind of like, in a non-threatening way, learn more about what to look for in the opportunities. Can you provide some examples? You provided some different industries types of things, but tell me a little bit about it. Do you view it strictly as a cash flow, or as a rate of return, or how, when you're coaching or working with people, how, we talked about getting to that number, and I appreciate that because that's real. But is there a do you always look at it in just that, how much closer does that get us to where we're going, or is there a rate of return, or how do you look at that?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing is that if you are focused on the freedom number itself, it's always going to be heavy on cash flow, right? Whatever is going to produce the most cash flow per month within reason, because there's certain deals that you get that might be like, oh man, I get this money back very quickly and it's a large number, but then it stops, you know, after 6 months or whatever. Well, that's not really sustainable if we're trying to pay monthly expenses, right? Consistently. So that's why like flipping homes and being a lender on that is difficult unless you were to stagger it where there's like, one deal now, one deal next month, one deal next month, and you can produce a cash flow with those vehicles, just not it's just not as automated. Like you got to be actively kind of looking at deals all the time. So that's not impossible, but I would say the bigger thing we're focused on is the monthly cash flow because we're trying to solve a monthly expense problem, right? And so you'll find that the rate of return kind of takes care of itself in that situation. But
Right.
most people, and this is what Wall Street wants you to focus on, is rate of return. And we don't even really know what the rate of return is all the time because they tell us one way that they calculate it. But if you really look at it, a lot of times those calculations are not even perfect. They're not even 100% accurate the way you would think, and so they're misleading at best. But they try to get you tied into what's the amount. That's a key point that I'll just make really quickly, Darren. When people say, "Well, Joey, why wouldn't I keep putting money in my 401k? It had a 12% return last year." Well, I say, "Well, that's fantastic. Good for you. How much of that will pay your mortgage next month?"
Right. Right.
Zero. Okay. So are you going to keep feeding? I'm not saying you take the money out of the 401k. I'm just saying, are you going to keep feeding monthly cash flow into a vehicle that doesn't produce a passive income or reduce a monthly expense? You can't pay me enough rate of return to stay locked up until I'm in my 60s, right? That's the opposite of what we're trying to accomplish. So rate of return can get you hazy on what's the actual most important thing.
Now I appreciate the insight, and sharing the kind of the refocusing of that, because that is kind of fallen into the lingo of the marketplace, in the vehicle that's been the default, hey, this is what it is, versus
Yep.
what you're saying. It's where the rubber meets the road is, does your passive income meet or exceed your expenses? And that's when you have financial freedom. That's good.
That's your scorecard.
Yeah.
Your scoreboard has to change. That's the whole point of our conversation today. And
Yeah.
this isn't for everybody, Darren, but for
Yeah.
the person that says, I have felt exactly what Joey felt on vacation. I have felt being at work, clocking in, clocking out, not being where I want to be, or told my family I wanted to be present and I cannot be. If that is how you feel today, you got to change the scoreboard. Whether it's working with us or somebody else, change the scoreboard because you'll never look back and regret making that change. You will never regret it. You will only regret inaction.
No, that's good stuff. Good stuff. Joey, if I could, I'd like to shift gears here for a second. As I mentioned to you before, by day I'm an insurance broker. And as such, I work with my clients to assess risk and determine what to do with the risk. And there's three strategies we typically consider. We first look to see if there's a way we can avoid the risk. When that's not an option, we look to see if there's a way we can minimize the risk. If we cannot avoid nor minimize the risk, we look to see if we can transfer the risk. And that's what an insurance policy is. It's a risk transfer vehicle. And as such, I like to ask my guests if they can look at their own situation. Could be your clients, could be the political environment, could be the Fed, whatever it is that you identify and consider to be the biggest risk. And again, for clarification, while I am an insurance broker, I'm not necessarily looking for an insurance-related answer. And so, if you're willing, I'd like to ask you, Joey Mure, what is the biggest risk?
I think the number one risk facing America right now, which me included, is the onset of AI. And I don't think people are paying attention to how quickly it is making things that were solid, confident type ways of making money obsolete. And let me just, I'll share this with you. I'm a part of a mastermind, and there was a gentleman who spoke in March, and it woke me up to this. I already knew that this was a risk, but he said something very profound. He said he's in a room of about 80 people that are highly successful coaches, mentors, influencers, things like that online, and marketing and stuff like that. And he said, if you're not asking the question, 90% of you are out of business in 2 years. And he said, because being people that have information are completely obsolete at this point. The only people who will surpass AI are actually going to be icons. These are people who you immediately associate with a product or a service, right? And he gave some examples. He was like, what is Richard Branson's brand? A handful of people probably know what his actual brands are, but they recognize who he is because he's an icon. And AI is not going to get rid of an icon. But if you're just regurgitating information from one person to the world, you're obsolete. You have to become absolutely like somebody who people will follow. You have to become the person who's not just information, but implementation, actual results. And that's why I say, Russ and I are result leaders, not just thought leaders. We do the thing that we're telling you to do, and we report on exactly what's happening, good or bad, because we want to be authentically in your corner to say, hey, you can do this. Look, we're doing it right here. This is how this works. And there's going to be both a big risk with AI and a humongous opportunity. And the biggest opportunity is to become authentic and to become real. Because in an age of AI, everybody's going to be searching for what is real. Everything seems fake. Well, what's going to be real is going to be you talking about your experience and sharing those things with the world. So now everybody's not going to be an influencer and all that sort of stuff, but you have to understand how AI plays into your life and how you can use it to then benefit. And I think people will 10 and 100x what they're able to do today because of AI if they get on the right side of it. If they don't, they will be obsolete.
Scary and true, I think. um, I say scary. It's the change is kind of the constant in life, but AI is definitely going to change a lot of things, and it is changing things. I mean, yeah, definitely seeing that. So I appreciate you sharing that. Hey, Joey Mure, where can the listeners go if they'd like to learn more or connect with you?
Well, I tried to make this URL the longest in history. Um, so if you go to wealthwithoutwallstreet.com/commercial real estate pro network, I'll say it again, wealthwithoutwallstreet.com/commercial real estate pro network. We have a lot of free giveaways on there. We have our contact info, all the ways that you can engage. You can join our free community where you can talk about these things in a bigger setting. So love to connect with you there. And just let me know, if you don't mind, that you heard Darren and I on the show, because I always love to know where people heard us from.
Awesome. Well, Joey Mure, I cannot say thanks enough for taking the time to talk. I've enjoyed it, learned a lot, and look forward to doing it again soon.
Likewise, thanks for the opportunity.
All right. For our listeners, if you like this episode, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Remember, the more you know, the more you grow. That's all we've got this week. Until next time, thanks for listening to Commercial Real Estate Pro Network's CRE PN Radio.
You're listening to CRE PN Radio for influential commercial real estate professionals. For more information on this or any of our guests, like us on Facebook, CRE PN Radio.